Hi, I'm the cult boyfriend of FilmTube, and I'd really like to gather your thoughts on this. I want to kind of start an open discussion. This is something that I like to think about a lot. Um, Essentially, why is horror, I guess, is the simplest way you can ask it. But I have a couple different videos on this because I find it to be one of the most fascinating parts of horror. Horror's self-referential obsession with its own context, with its own place and time. Um, I'm not going to go into it too much here, but just to set a kind of analytical foundation, like a starting point. Each decade of horror seems to have its own seemingly coordinated manifesto, right? Some of the most popular films that defined the genre per decade all seem to be hinting at the same thing, and sometimes it's a lot easier and some to see it in retrospect, and other times that's the only way it is possible to see exactly what those films were talking about is in retrospect. But I think we could catch on to it sooner. Just to lay the foundation, what I'm looking for is like take 80s and early 90s. Like there was something wrong with our blood. It was like vampires. It was AIDS epidemic. It was androgynous sexually. Then we get to the postmodernism within slasher movies, which led directly to Columbine and and was essentially killed by Columbine and killed by the 9/11 terror attacks as well. But and then after that, we have like The Return, which was accentuated by torture porn, that kind of thing. And the 2010s are a little bit more difficult to determine what's going on there. So I'm trying to ask you guys this. What is modern horror trying to say? What is modern horror tapping into? And just to give you guys like a baseline, you could use films like Midsummer and The Witch. You can use films like Us, but I think that's almost disingenuous because the films that I'm using to determine um, what was truly important for previous decades were like also the most successful films and seen as partly shallow in their time. I'm talking about for the 90s. I'm talking about Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, and like the Urban Legend. And for the return or torture porn, I'm talking about like Saw and Hostel and The Devil's Rejects, Wrong Turn. I'm talking about films that were pretty mainstream already. Films that were kind of seen as shallow then. So maybe within this time period, uh, like I think it's a bit disingenuous to use, yeah, films like Hereditary or The Lighthouse instead of using films like the whole Conjuring franchise or Paranormal Activity films or the Purge franchise. Like there's something there to the really popular films because I'm not talking about what scares cinephiles, what scares like film school dropouts. I'm talking about what scares normal people. I was about to say actual people, like like you and I aren't actual people, but maybe we're not. Maybe we're not. But what is this? Because it's never like on the nose, you know. It's never immediately clear. You could use Get Out. Get Out was huge. You could use Sinister. Sinister was huge. But what is this? What is going on here? Because in the 2000s, you had a return to sincerity, which was, yes, highlighted by torture porn, but it was also highlighted by found footage. And we still have the remnants of found footage here. Torture porn basically died. That was a fad that lasted all of 6 years, max. But found footage is still here. Remnant of it. See, I'm spitballing because an extremely good and sensible and well thought out theory for each decade leading up to it. My favorite decade, by the way, my favorite period of horror is postmodernism, is that Kevin Williamson era, where we had Scream, The Faculty, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Scream 2, Urban Legend, Halloween H2O, Final Destination, Cherry Falls. That's my favorite era. And it's like they're American-made studio projects, so I'm not looking for like, oh well, you have to look to you have to look to this small little film that no one's ever heard of from a country that no, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for like the public consciousness. This isn't taking away from like more underground, independent, or unknown filmmakers being extremely good. They are extremely good, and they're most likely a bit more talented than the ones I'm going for. But I am going for these people because normal people out there, they're not thinking about their own internalized fears, their own internalized like angers when they're watching these films. And these films are giving it back to them. Now uh, I've been rather uh, sincerely and seriously, intensely devoted to like James Wan's The Conjuring. I think that's a masterpiece. I think it's a flawless film. I'm not sure exactly why I can tell you that it did so well. Maybe because like we're in postmodernism, where everybody knows you're at a movie. In fact, you'd go to the movie for the spectacle. It's the only reason to go to the film. Like the Conjuring is wild because it's literally a film about filmmaking, right? So what? That has nothing to do with anything. Oh my god, this is such a rambling video. Mostly because I don't really know. I have to think about it. Okay, Faith, you gotta work with me, Faith. Or else, I mean, Buffy will go there instead. She's a bit more reliable. Like, I'm trying to think about this. I'm trying to determine it, and it's only so surprising to me because I could go on for hours about the racial implications of zombies, the anti-consumerist, anti-capitalist concepts, components of the Romero zombie films. I can go on forever about the sexual androgyny, the queer coding, gay undertones, overtones, actually, quite clearly, of films like The Lost Boys, An Interview with the Vampire. I can go on forever about punished liberal films like Candyman. I can go on forever about films that seem to expose this nihilistic, cynical, psychopathic behavior that we find in Scream and The Faculty with young kids. I could go on forever about films like Wrong Turn, Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, Hostel, Blair Witch Project, and the return to form that they really were, and the return to a new sincerity that they were trying to be. I could go on for days about what the Saw films were telling us about those grainy little videos that we were getting back from the Iraq War. Um, um, f- During the war on terrorism, those weird, everyone had access to internet, and everybody saw those early beheading videos, and then everyone saw those lively snuff films online. This was the way that we were processing that information. This is the way that we were processing the torture porn atmospherics that we were learning how to deal with ourselves. I can go on for hours about Saw and James Wan. I can go on for hours about The Conjuring, just not within its proper context. I think. I mean it's a proper context from an analytical like compositional point of view. I could tell you why I think it's flawless. I can't exactly tell you why countless other people did. Like we have to remember, James Wan is so fascinatingly important because he took 2 decades and he created the most popular horror franchises in both of them. In the 2000s, he made the first Saw movie. Holy shit, that spawned a whole fucking legion of films. In The Conjuring, we have to remember, there's The Conjuring 2, the Annabelle spin-offs, and The Nun so far. Like people are connecting with this. Not like even take superhero movies. It's very obvious that superhero movies are a response to to a culture becoming a bit more authoritative leaning. Like that is very clear. Like, we can make fun of these popular movies all we want, but if we don't learn lessons from them, if we don't figure out why they were popular in the first place, then we're doomed to repeat them over and over again. That's why certain genres still have a monopoly. Certain subgenres still have a monopoly. Genre film will always have monopoly, but the subgenre, that's the interesting part, because they go in cycles. And each time they come back, they're kind of renewed. Um, with a new, very current, immediate vigor. So, what the hell is going on right now? I don't really know. I'm not very keen or good at being a film tuber, and that's obvious. But like, uh, the, the more pertinent reasoning why I'm not a very good film tuber is I almost have no desire to see new movies. And maybe I shouldn't even be looking at movies. Maybe things like Black Mirror and Haunting of Hill House, maybe like Netflix original series, maybe television is speaking to the ethos. Maybe that's where it is. Maybe that's where the zeitgeist lies. Maybe that's the lexicon. Maybe film is irrelevant because I can't find a common thread. Even if you were using films like just the A24 kind of style of film, they don't necessarily have a common thread beyond the demonic, but they're also half-hearted when it comes to the demonic, outside of Eggers, who is possibly a Satanist, and I love him, he's great, but still, it's not like a true common thread. It's difficult to determine that. The Purge, I think, had more to do with the authoritative leanings, so I think it's falling out of fashion, for sure, but The Conjuring's still there, Paranormal Activity's still there. Obviously, there's a supernatural thread to those two films, but it's never on the nose. It's never exactly what you think it is. You know, it's never exactly what you think. Like, you weren't scared of vampires in The Lost Boys. You were scared of the fact that you wanted to be a lost boy, and you were oddly attracted to David. That's the scary part of that film. Or that's the only part of the film that is remotely dangerous or interesting. It's not a vampire story. Interview with the Vampire isn't a vampire story. It's a story about, well, I mean, androgyny, AIDS. Whew! What the fuck is horror? Why is horror? Why the fuck is horror? I'm open to all ideas, obviously. I'm literally just pulling, yanking. Nothing. Coming up short. But this trend's old. Old fucking trend. You go back to the Phantom of the Opera and Lon Chaney's roles and like The Penalty. Those were reminiscent of World War I vets coming home all disabled, with prosthetic limbs and facial masks to cover up new deformities. That's always It's always what horror's been about. Like, you're not afraid of a fucking organ player. You're you're afraid of that which doesn't belong in your society anymore, but used to. And it plays on your own fear, and it plays on your own disgust with your own fear, because obviously a soldier is to be respected, especially if he's injured forever, deformed, because of something that you didn't have the daring do to do. But okay, what the fuck is horror? What the fuck is horror? In the comments, please help me out. I'm gonna kick Buffy's. I swear to fucking God. That's why Faith will always be. See, Faith. Oh, I was just talking good about you, dog. But that's why Faith will always be the best Buffy character. She's ironically reliable. Man, I wish these are board games. And I can't convince any of my real life friends to play this game. I can't convince them to even watch the show. But it's one of the best shows ever created. Up there with Dawson's Creek for me. Which, I don't know if that that just turns you off immediately. But watch Buffy if you haven't. That was very important to late 90s, early 2000s discourse, to the ethos and informed culture. It's another fucking postmodern existentialist masterpiece by Joss Whedon. Okay, no, in the comments. Fill in the dots. Where's that puzzle piece that I'm missing? Help me understand why horror is anything right now. Help me understand why is horror. I'm 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 coming up empty-handed. I'm drawing a blank. Please let me know in the comments what you think is horror's manifesto right now, what you think is the fear that horror is targeting. It has to be a widely shared fear that maybe we're not even aware of right now. That's why in retrospect it's easier to identify these things. In the comments, let me know.